Well, here, my brother had a thumb and finger off, and they drafted him. See?
I went up to the guy and he goes, "Can you do this?" Oh, okay. Thank you so much. And I'll call you Wally. I'll put your full name up with Wally in parentheses, okay?
There's so much, you see, so much to tell in a short period of time.
I know, and you did a great job of putting it in perspective. You talked about 28 minutes there, so that's summing up World War II. We got Tex over here batting cleanup.
Yeah, Texas.
Well, after these two heroes.
What do you mean? I'm no hero of the Pacific. I never got touched. You guys are the ones. I didn't have to crawl out of that ship out there when I saw you rolling over.
Well, you know, that's right. You were on the big fleet battleship, the big Pennsylvania with the Admiral, and then he's on this little AG-16. It used to be a battleship, but it is a very special ship, that's for sure. Very special ship.
Now, Bill's got some highly polished shoes here.
Look at those shoes.
Yeah.
I worked on those 3 hours last night.
I had some of those too when I was in MP. Core frames. We
You can
just
buy
dusted
them.
them
They're
off.
core fan. You can buy them.
I never even had shine them that good with the Admiral.
Okie doke, I tell you what, I'm gonna get this on your collar. I'm gonna get this direction on this one.
You take a key from what I've heard, and I'll just go ahead and give him my background.
I'm sorry, keep getting.
Oh,
Name,
sure.
date of birth.
Yeah, let
Place
him
of
get
birth.
you mic'd up so you can do the mic check.
I was
on it,
gonna
too.
say you, I got it, the drill.
You,
I won't,
this guy's followed a few orders in his life, I think.
well, between the Navy and my wife, yeah. I was married 65 years. No,
Oh,
wow.
you go by Bill?
Yes, but if you want to be foreman, you can call me Sir William.
Sir William.
Bill's,
And it's Hughes,
yes.
and you were born when?
I was born November the 8th, 1921, in southwest Louisiana.
And your hometown is,
I have no hometown. I was born in the country.
well, yeah, but
I was born in Vernon Parish, Louisiana, November the 8th, 1921.
and then but you're living now in Texas?
Oh, yes.
We'll have to trade a few Boudreaux jokes when we're done.
I'd give you some Fontenot jokes, too.
And we're gonna get Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. How about that?
Well, Grapevine would be fine.
So let's see, so you are 93? Well, you were a young whippersnapper too when you joined, huh? Well, let's pick it up. Let's pick it up from there. Are you rolling, Mike?
Yeah, I'm rolling.
Okay, Bill. Why did you join the Navy?
I had two goals when I joined the Navy. I wanted to get out and see the world, and I wanted to learn a marketable skill so that when I came out of the Navy, I would have a chance at a good job.
And what was your skill?
I was in communications. I was in radio communications in the Navy, and later I would branch into other forms, but always communications.
And so when did you get on board the USS?
November the 8th, 1940,
On your birthday.
on my birthday.
And you were in Washington at the time? Bremerton, Washington? Or did you?
Well, the ship went to Bremerton, Washington while I was on it, but it was in Pearl Harbor when I went aboard.
Okay, so you're in Pearl Harbor, 1940.
Right.
Fast forward a whole year, it coming up on late November 1941. What was going on then?
I was Petty Officer, 3rd Class, pay grade E4, radio operator.
And, let's just cut right to the chase. What were you doing on December 7th, 1941?
Like most of the country, I was asleep. I was
And,
ensconced in my dry cot, 3 decks below, adjacent to the main radio operating room. When the first torpedo hit, it woke me. In 30 seconds, and someone said, we've been rammed. It does happen occasionally. One ship will run into another for whatever reason. But then, 30 seconds, it was a jolting, very loud and vibration. And we knew that it was it was a big ship that hit us. We'd been rammed. But 30 seconds later, once again it happened. And no fool is going to ram you twice. The ship took on a list almost immediately. I
Yeah.
managed to get in to just scanty dress, my shoes, t-shirt, and at that time I was in tropical uniform. I had on a pair of short white pants, and that's how I went to the top side to see what was going on. We were at peace when I went to sleep, and we had never thought anything like that could happen. And if the Japanese should have attacked us, the war wouldn't last over 5 weeks. We had underestimated them so badly. I was a radio press operator. I kept up with the international news. I knew about what was going on in Washington and elsewhere in the world. But I was shocked when I got to the top side, and there was a safe area, semi-safe. Nothing was really safe, but it was covered on 3 sides, but we could see out. And by that time, the ship obviously was sinking. And the idea was you would try to pick. They were coming back strafing us. They weren't happy that they had sunk our ships. They wanted to kill everybody they could. I wasn't even mad at them until that point. Anyway, the real dangers that I faced at that moment was if I didn't get strafed. Everyone had the same idea about the same time. We were jumping in the water as rapid as possible. You could be jumped on, or you could jump on someone, and neither would be pretty. And being about 100 yards away from shore being Fort Island, had a good swim over there. Of course, when the adrenaline takes over and you're scared as I was, you get a little extra boost, you know. So I made it to Fort Island, as most everyone did that wasn't killed on the ship. And we found refuge in a drainage ditch that was being dug for a pipeline, and I think it was going to be for sewage. We didn't care about that because the way the Japanese came in, they normally flew over the aft part of the ship, and we were parallel to the ship, so they didn't see us. They could have killed several hundred men, like shooting. Well, I had the feeling of a fish in a rain barrel anyway, but we really would have been gone if they had seen us. Then there was a lull after whatever length of time. While in the ditch, we did hear the rumor the Japanese were landing on the other side of the island. And I didn't join the Navy to bayonet anybody or anything. I was a technician. Anyway, I remember very vividly hearing the explosions going on over Battleship Row. When the Arizona exploded, the sound was deep in frequency. It was just almost, well, it didn't vibrate across the island a mile or so, but we knew bad things were happening. We could see the smoke. We weren't prepared for what we would see later. Then before the second wave came in, we moved to various locations on Fort Island. I was in a cinder block building, no windows, a tin roof, and I felt more confined in there, not knowing then what was happening, because they had done quite a job on Fort Island in the destruction of hangars, planes, and other buildings. So there we were, like our hands were tied, waiting and hoping that no one dropped a bomb on that little building where my group was huddled. So finally, it was all over, about an hour and 45 minutes after it started. We were wet. Although the harbor was warm, I was glad to be in the tropics instead of the North Sea or someplace. We went up and got new uniforms, and I made one of the worst. Oh, I did get wounded going ashore. I cut my foot on a piece of coral when walking up onto Fort Island, but it was negligible. It would be the only wound that I would get during World War II. And from Pearl Harbor, I traveled, zigzagged across the Pacific, as far north as the Bering Sea, as far south as New Zealand, as far west as the Philippines, and eventually Japan. But on the 12th of January, I was aboard the USS Saratoga, an aircraft carrier. They had come in to Pearl Harbor a week after the attack, and they took on quite a few survivors from various ships. And on the 12th of January, we were returning from Johnson Island, where we had deplaned a Marine Air Detachment to reinforce Johnson Island, and we were torpedoed at sea just after we secured from general quarters. Japanese submarines, like early sunup and late sundown, they could get their periscopes lined up with the sun, and they were hard to detect. And we didn't have that much escorts to protect us, obviously, from submarine attacks. So we took a torpedo, which took out an engine room, killed 16 people. But the ship was big, and it was watertight, and they were able to shift the balance and keep it afloat. So we headed into Pearl Harbor, about 300 miles from there. And when we arrived at Pearl Harbor, the Japanese knew we were going there. There was nowhere else for a ship to limp into. And they had submarines on both sides of us. I was on the top side, on the flight deck, watching as the captain did a great job zigzagging through. And we could see some of the torpedoes exploding on the beach. And we did make it in. And I did some thinking. No, on December 7th, my ship gets sunk. On January the 12th, my ship gets torpedoed at sea. I'm not off to a good start in World War II, you know?
Did you want some water? You sound like you were getting a little parched.
Oh, I have COPD and I sound like junk anyway.
So what was going through your mind when you saw all this destruction?
I was just scared to death. I was frightened. And I think a few others were too, whether they admit it or not. But we knew it was the Japanese. You could see the meatballs on the underside of their wings of their planes. And we knew what was going on. And of course, we would learn later they wanted to wipe out the Pacific Fleet so they could take over Southeast Asia and